Joseph Sikora, who plays Tommy, is also from Chicago, correct?
He is, man. He's a Chicago son. He's actually lived in New York longer than he's lived in Chicago. But
Oh, really? I'm from New
yeah.
York.
Oh, you really? Yeah,
Yeah,
dig
from
that.
Queens, man. Shout out to Queens.
Okay, yeah, he's a New York cat. Now, but Chicago, we always gonna claim him, and that's where him and I met. Him and I did theater together
Uh-huh.
many, many years together. So we've been on stage together and have done shows, and to be able to work with him again and to play for us to play brothers
Yeah.
is a dream, man. Because you can't fake that 25 years of knowing somebody and challenging somebody on stage or on screen. So that dynamic and that energy and that vibe between us, I hope it's reading. I hope it continues to read, and you'll see more of that as the story continues to unfold.
All right. Yeah, for sure, for sure. It's coming across well. So with that being said, when did he know that you were joining the power team? Since you guys knew each other prior, what was that like? Did you just spring it on him like, hey, see you on set? Did he know way before? How did that go about?
No, man, it's actually a pretty cool story. He reached out to me. We would keep in touch with each other over the years. If he came to Chicago, if I was in the show, he'd come see the show. Or when he came back to do theater, I would go check him out. But about 4 months or so before we began filming, he called me out the blue, man, and was like, "Yo, there's this role on the show that I think you would be great for." And he was like, "Do you mind if I give your phone number to one of the EPs?" And at the time, man, I was unemployed. I had retired from acting 2 years prior, and I was working in group fitness. I worked for a health club, and I was an instructor. But COVID in Chicago, man, it shut all that down. So I was actually furloughed out of work. And here's Tommy Egan calling me like, "Yo, you want to do this show? Can I give you a number?" And I was like, "Most definitely give my number to that cat." But then he called me a few minutes later, this producer from New York, on FaceTime. And it was just like, Joseph speaks very highly of you and y'all's relationship. So that started the ball rolling. And I had to audition about 7 times, maybe a little bit more, to finally secure the role. So he was definitely a big part of that process. So he was there for that. And he actually, my wife and him are friends because we all used to work
Mhm.
together too in a nightclub when he was here in Chicago.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, we were bouncers together.
Wow.
And
Look at
yeah,
that.
look at that. And him and my wife, who worked there as a server, they've remained friends. So he actually texted her when I finally got it. He was like, "Yo, buy a bottle of champagne." And I saw her reaction to getting the text, and I was like, "What?" And she showed it. She showed it to me, and that was it, man. And that was like December 2020, and then we started filming in February 2021.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man.
Be good to good people and good people be good to you, man. That's a
Hey, that's it,
classic
baby.
story. So yeah, it's funny that you said you guys worked in the club together because JP actually in
Yeah.
Power has a jazz club. Are you familiar with jazz? Are you into jazz? Is that your
Oh
type of thing?
man, jazz is my favorite music. My father, who I was very close to, and he was my hero growing up, he was a big jazz cat, and he always played, vinyl in the house, man. So growing up, I heard, I was into my music, of course, as well, but I grew up with Miles and Coltrane and Sonny
Mhm.
Rollins and Chet Baker and Art
Oh yeah.
Blakey and Dizzy and Ella Fitzgerald and Billie Holiday, all these jazz musicians. And real story, I don't know in New York, but you remember Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood?
Yes, definitely.
When I was a shorty, I used to watch that. And at the end of the show, after he took off the cardigan and the sneakers and he was leaving, they always played jazz. And as a kid, it just always resonated
Connected.
with me.
Mhm.
Yeah, like the outro music to Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. It was like piano and the stand up, real basic, but I loved it. I loved the feeling and the vibe of it. And, I've always continued, it's always been my favorite music. So to have a jazz club that I own in the show here in Chicago with my
Yeah.
dad, because Herman is my father on the show, played by Cedric Young, a Chicago actor as
Mhm.
well. We
Yeah.
own this jazz club. And in my wildest dreams, I would have loved to own a jazz club with my dad. So it's like living out this dream, on the Power Book 4 set.
So would you say that how much of JP is actually Anthony? Like how much are you in part of that character? Because it seems like you got a lot of connections.
I do, man. A lot of this cat resonates with me. There's certain roles as an actor that you get that you feel in your bones, even before it's fully developed or realized. There's just something that draws you to this person. I've played other roles that have had the same effect on me. I played Fred Hampton, who was a real person. He was a Black Panther back in the day, but my first play was actually portraying Fred Hampton, and I had this really strong connection to him because that was my father's era, and I grew up hearing those stories, especially in Chicago, about the Black Panther Party and the movement back in the day. So I connected with that cat. I played Levy on stage once in August Wilson's Fences, who was another jazz musician. He was a cornet player. He's one of our most revered playwrights in the African American community. Levy is one of those roles. If you ask a lot of brothers who have played him, he's a role that stays with you. It's hard to shake that role. And JP as well. There's a lot of myself in the character, and I drew from a lot of personal experience, I would say, in crafting and shaping this role.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I see you around on the internet. You seem pretty smooth, and JP seems like a smooth guy. So I was like, you
Yeah,
know what? That seems like him. And if it's not, it's incredible acting either way. you know.
my
So
man.
um, leading up to the premiere,
Yeah.
before the first episode came out, were you nervous at all that if the show wasn't going to measure up to all the hype? Because it's a lot of hype. I mean, this is Tommy here, his own
Yeah.
show. Like everyone was waiting for this. How does it feel going into that first episode?
There was no fear at all because I knew the hard work that everybody put into this, starting with the leader of the guy driving the car, Joseph Sikora. I knew the hard work that the cast and this crew put into the work every day. I mean, it was such an honor to come to work and to work with artists of this caliber. And we all know the responsibility of this show. There's a lot of responsibility when you have a hit show, a show that a lot of people vibe with, because you got to put out, a banging story. You got to keep it going. You got to keep people interested. You got to keep flushing out these characters, and unfolding this story in a way that people connect to. Because at the end of the day, man, it's all storytelling. So I was very confident that people were going to dig this story. What I was not nervous about is that, when you do this thing as an actor, you work in a vacuum a lot of the times, so you do what you do and then you don't really see it. Like you don't see it until
Right.
it come out
Right.
next year.
Right.
So I just wanted to see it, man. I wanted to see the work of all the other actors who I wasn't in scene with, I just wanted to see how it was going to be all put together. And then, the premiere was in New York at this dope venue. We all, because of COVID, we all were in these like individual igloo type situations with our guests and our friends and families. But everyone who saw it for the first time, just their reaction to it, man, was everything. And to see my city portrayed in that way, I watched the premiere on Stars with my family in my living room, all Chicago cats. And the first opening scene, which is that sweep of our lakefront, man, just instinctively in unison, everybody just lifted their glass and we just took this big breath of like, yo, that's our city. Look at it, and to be able to do that, man, that means everything because Chicago needs to get more love because there are so many dope actors and artists in general that come out of Chicago who everybody watching this and other programs, they know and love. It's like, yo, that cat started in Chicago, or that cat worked or got his chops in Chicago. That's how we do here. So to showcase our city in this way and have it so connected to Tommy's story, for him to be able to come here and rebuild himself in a city that is known for rebuilding and reimagining itself. It's fantastic, man. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing.